It was as though different voices were coming in my head, and I was feeling a bunch of weird things within my body. And I was like, what is happening? I want to say Jesus Christ, but I couldn't. I remember asking my higher self, oh, do I need to go to a church? Why am I asking? I'm going to go to a church. For some reason, I just knew I need a priest to pray over me. That was the moment in the day that Jesus really saved my life. I'm Erika Valle. I was a very shy kid growing up. The only people I felt comfortable being my full self with was my family. We always went to church, and God was a big part of our life. So I never really had a large group of friends. I was never like a popular person because I was so reserved. When I went to college, I still hadn't grown out of that. I remember starting my freshman year and wanting to kind of break out of that shell and be able to make more friends and be more open. I got involved with the Catholic community on campus because my thought process was, oh, these are people, close to God. And all throughout growing up in church, I always knew those people were the most welcoming, the most loving and accepting. So that's where I saw out, I guess, friendships and the community I needed on campus. I had gotten very close with people in the Catholic community, and I had gotten very involved with it. And when it came around to my junior year of college, they started promoting a pilgrimage that the Catholic community at my school was going to do, and that was going to go with 2 priests and a group of 12 students. So, and the pilgrimage was to Italy. So I had already been to Italy once before, and I remember I really enjoyed it, but I didn't get to have a lot of time there, so I wanted to go back. And my main reason and intention behind going wasn't necessarily, of course I knew it was centered around God, and it was to help me grow in my faith, but that wasn't my true intention for wanting to go. I just wanted to go to Italy, and I thought it would be really cool to see all these different places. On the pilgrimage, we got to go to 3 different places, 3 different towns. And so the first stop, I believe, was Rome and the Vatican. That day is a day we went to Assisi, and we stayed at a convent with nuns. And so here I am struggling with this anxiety around whether or not God was calling me to be a nun. And then we're staying at a convent with nuns. And so I feel like it made that fear and that anxiety even more heightened. It got so much more, so much harder to bear. It became a lot harder to bear. And so I remember that night being so afraid and having such a hard time going to sleep. I'm being reminded of this for a reason. I was having such a hard time falling asleep because I was terrified that there was going to be an apparition and that it was going to be Jesus or Mother Mary telling me yes, you have to be a nun or something like that. I don't know why, but I was just so afraid. And I guess because, I had heard so many stories of apparitions of Mother Mary and Jesus and saints and whatnot. And so I couldn't fall asleep that night because of it, and I didn't want to tell anybody. I tried to shove the whole nun thing and my issue with my faith in that point in my life to try to shove it away, put it in my back pocket, stuff it away in a drawer, whatever you want to think of it. And I just remember like that being the first thing I did to try and help myself. Little by little, I started growing further and further away from my faith. I remember getting introduced to it's called a holistic healing technique called breathwork. It's a breathing technique that they say is good that helps you with learning how to meditate, helps you with anxiety, depression, all of the things I was still struggling with. I was seeking something to help me with my mental health. I'd feel a lot of, I guess, a form of peace after. Like I liked the way I felt after. I felt very calm, serene, I guess you could say. And I really liked it. It was just breathing slowly, and then I would meditate and start feeling weird. And so that was that, and it was centered around emotional healing, is what they call it, and telling you that it would help you. I remember reaching out to this woman, telling her what I was struggling with, which was a lot of emotional and mental health issues, and I asked her if it was something that would help me. She, of course, said yes. You know, she's trying to get business. Of course it's gonna help you. So I said, all right, I jumped in and I did it. And I remember that was the first time that I thought something had really changed my life, and that breathwork, I was so like impressed by it. I think it was in this program actually that I started being told, I guess, taught, and I came to believe that there was that almost as though like you yourself are God, and that Jesus maybe isn't real, and that the only thing that exists is the universe, and that you have the power and ability to be able to manifest things in your life, to call things into existence. All of these ideologies that filled my mind with so much darkness, I think. I started thinking I actually had control, and I think that's when I started becoming obsessed with trying to like control what happened in my life and control my future. And again, I think it all stemmed back from the fact that I wanted to be really successful in my life. I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to be a leader, make an impact. I had all of these desires in my life, right, in my heart, and I thought I was the only person that could make something happen. And it actually, even though they told you this breathwork stuff, all this self-development stuff was gonna help you and improve your life, it made my life worse. I started questioning whether or not I even believed Jesus existed. And it was as though my faith that had been such a big part of my life had become like a grain of salt, like barely there. And I think I had become very estranged from my family. I went and I moved into an apartment by myself, and I started having all of this alone time. I had then begun trying to build a business around breathwork itself. I had become a facilitator of it, and I was trying to help people. That was always the goal. Help people while I also did what I wanted for myself, which was be successful and have a business. All I was trying to do in this time was fill that question, I guess, of who God is, or like the purpose of my life. I started trying to seek those answers within myself. I sought these answers out in the world, in social media, in the other influencers I followed and idolized, I guess. And all I was doing was trying to become like them. And I guess it stemmed back from that shy girl that just wanted to be liked, just wanted to fit in, wanted to be popular, I guess, and wanted to feel worthy and loved. And I started going to this this store in downtown McKinney that offered Reiki services, breathwork or full moon and new moon meditations and stuff like that. And so I started going there and meeting a bunch of different people involved in this stuff as well. And so I remember it was with them that I started being told that, oh, you can talk to different like deities and through like meditation, I guess, and call upon different like gods, I guess you could think, so on, so doing a bunch of weird like meditations and rituals, and I remember like at some point feeling as though like I felt as though spirits would come inside me and take control of my body. And I didn't really understand what I was experiencing. And I'm really struggling and I'm experiencing all these weird things. And I just texted her and I was like, I feel like something is like trying to take me over. What do I do? I can't even explain what I experienced. It was weird. I remember like being able to find enough peace to fall asleep. I wake up and I'm getting ready, and as I'm trying to get ready, all of a sudden I start moving my body in a bunch of weird ways. It's as though I lose control of my body or myself, and lose like kind of like my consciousness like is not necessarily there. And then all of a sudden I realize I'm looking at myself in the mirror, moving my arms in a really weird way, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I need to go. Like, I am gonna be late to work. And so then I'm driving to work, and I remember at one point I'm driving and I'm conscious, and then at another point I come back to being conscious of where I am again, and I have passed my job. I drove past it without realizing it. And I'm like, where am I? And I start getting really scared. And I was like, what is happening? And I remember feeling as though there was something on top of me trying to like take over my body. That's all I can explain. That's what it felt like. I remember asking my higher self, oh, do I need to go to a church? And then I remember at the same time being like, why am I asking? I'm going to go to a church. I was like, and for some reason, I just knew I need a priest to pray over me. I don't know what I'm experiencing right now. It's as though like deep down I knew I was having some kind of demonic influence trying to take over my body. And the only person that could save me from that was a priest. And I remember just having to like push. It was almost like an internal struggle, I guess, to go see that priest. But I went. And so I remember sitting down in front of him, telling him what I'm experiencing. I remember he asks me, who is God for you? And in that moment, I remember just kind of like breaking down. In my mind, I remember thinking I want to say Jesus Christ, but I couldn't. I couldn't physically say the words. Anything that gets you into those altered states of consciousness, that's bad for you. And I was like, oh my gosh. Here I am being a facilitator of something where they literally tell you you can go into altered states of consciousness. And when you do really long breath work meditations, you have to lay down because you can go into altered states of consciousness, and it's best that you not like fall down. And I have been doing these types of meditations for years now. And he tells me, yeah, that's really bad for you. And he tells me in the Catholic faith, what we believe is that, you know, when we take the Eucharist, that's the body and blood of Christ. And if you are not filled with Christ, you will be filled with other things. And so he said, so I believe you, that you feel that you're filled of like bad spirits. He was like, you can choose to continue going down this path you're going, or you can choose Jesus Christ, essentially. I remember in that moment, I had to choose Jesus, because if I didn't, I was going to lose my life. I was going to die. And I really felt that. And I hadn't realized all this time I had gotten very skinny. I had stopped eating a lot, and I had become very weak. And while I was still in there, my parents got there. And I remember like them coming in, and I just felt really afraid. That was the moment in the day that Jesus really saved my life, and the priest prayed over me. He told me the way that you start coming back to the church and allowing God to heal you, I guess, is by doing the sacraments. And he said, first thing for you is you need to confess, because you need to empty yourself out of all of that stuff so that when you do take the Eucharist again, you will be filled with Jesus. Experiencing this feeling, I knew what it was instantly. One, it was love. I felt this immense presence of, now I realize, God's love. And I felt so at peace in there. And I was like, wow. I was like, this is real love. Because in the whole New Age stuff, they talked to you about love, and you are love, and being love, and affirming yourself that I am love. And they had all of these ideologies about all the things that they teach us in the church that is about God, Jesus, you know, the true God, and they try to emulate it, but it's not the same at all. I remember being in that room being like, wow, this is real love, not the stuff I had experienced before. God doesn't make mistakes, only opportunities. And we walk, me and Father Christian go, and my family go to the church. I confessed with him that night. And that's all I thought was gonna happen, right? Confession, and that's it, go home. But he tells me to follow him, and we walk. The confessional's in the chapel right behind the main church where the tabernacle is. We walk around, we go up to the main altar in the church, and he goes in the tabernacle. Gosh, I'm gonna get emotional again. And he gets a host. And that's the first time I get offered the Eucharist after such a long time. And he offers it to me, and I immediately start crying, and I fall to my knees. And because I think I'm really experiencing his love for us, and that mercy that is always talked about in the church. And I took the body and I felt true peace. And that was my first, that's when he changed my life. I've never looked back. It was the last day I ever did any sort of meditation, breath work, and looked at any of those things again. And ever since then, it's been me working my way back to having that deep faith again in God and in Jesus, and having a true relationship with Jesus. And so now I am, and he is first in my life. Main thing I look forward to now every single day. And if I have time throughout the day, in the middle of the day, I'll do it too. And what I do is I grab my Bible and I sit down and I pray before. I do the invocation of the Holy Spirit prayer, the "Come Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful," and so on. And I ask him to grant me his wisdom, knowledge, understanding, clarity, and discernment, so that I can find his answers to my questions in his word, and that his Holy Spirit will be with me and guide me to the scriptures that are going to answer my questions. I can really see and understand that he really is the living God, and he's here with us, and we just have to look at him and realize he's in everything. All we have to do is be open to it and ask him to make his presence known, and he will. He does. I think he loves doing that. So I guess that'd be my final statement. I love Jesus. That's my guy.